It's always like
I
I'm
saw
so
that. I was participating in that.
It felt cutthroat.
I just went for it.
A mad dash for the new what?
The new line in the Google Doc.
Oh.
the attendee list.
Yeah, I love that part of the fill out the attendee list when everyone's clobbering over each other's edits. Continuous read, continuous write still bedevils us.
It's even better when your Google Docs doesn't actually show you that other people are on the line.
Yeah, it's like it's like just enough behind the ball to be impactful. And then as far as I know, like everyone can be anonymous in the commentary. So
That's what's so
or
weird.
in the editing.
I wish it would actually tell, because clearly I'm assuming most people are logged in when they're editing like here, but why does it show you everybody as anonymous this or that except for a few? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Hi, folks.
Hello, Alan. Welcome.
Greetings from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I am currently hanging out in a random nook on campus that I spent a lot of time on 20 years ago.
All right, it's 5 after. Let's get cracking. I put it in the notes in the chat a couple times. Sign in if you haven't already. We're going to sign in the tools working group list agenda. I don't know what to call this. But most of today will happen in the SBOM Everywhere notes document, which is linked in the agenda. Unless someone has a pressing topic for the tools working group, let's deal with that business first, and then we'll move on to SBOM Everywhere. Does anyone have any tools agenda items? I will assume not. All right, SBOM Everywhere it is. Cool. I'll put the link to the other doc in the chat just in case anyone missed it. So this is where we'll work from. I see Kate is here. So Kate, the Python library funding is the first item on the list. Do you want to take us through what that means and what we want to do?
So the Python library is a pain point. We've got Gary O'Neill here who can also talk to this in more detail. But the code base in there is fairly stale. We've gotten an estimate from a contracting organization to help us do the cleanup and revitalize it a bit. The view here is it's getting us over the hump such that people can start to incrementally contribute. The hump has been there now for about a year as a pain point for the project. And so we're looking probably at, I think, 180K roughly. At this point in time, we've got an estimate in euros from them. And then that would take care of getting the code base cleaned up, putting a test suite in place, and moving it from 2.1 to 2.2 properly, as well as putting in 2.3. And so that will give us a better foundation for working forward for the transition to 3.0. That would be handled as a separate phase at a later time, potentially, but this would be getting us out of the mess point and hopefully aligning with making things visible. Gary, did you want to add anything to this?
No, I mean, I think everybody here already knows the popularity of Python. The libraries, the real goal of the libraries is to enable, other tools to very effectively, efficiently utilize, build SBOMs, read SBOMs, write SBOMs. And there are people that are using the Python libraries today, but what I've learned is a lot of people have forked them and use their own version, and they're not necessarily popular publicly shared libraries. So I think this would be a way to kind of bring everybody back into the same, common library usage and get it updated to the most current libraries.
I'm sorry, this is Pratik. I should know this, but which repositories are being referenced here? Or
I'm curious to the same.
I'll
paste the link.
okay, thank you.
So
So in a model standardized library,
Yeah.
is Python, I mean, Python obviously is one way. Did we want multi-support for other languages as well?
Yeah, we definitely want support. We have some of it already supported in a fairly well-maintained set of libraries from the community already with Java, from Gary and others. We also have some Go initiatives where there's some community people participating in that. There's other libraries we'd like to add in over time and make things a little bit more robust, but the biggest pain point we've seen right now is the Python libraries. So the idea was to put in an ask and see how this process worked, and then as other things are prioritized, see if there's other ways we can make it happen through the community, or come here and see if we can get some people to help.
And I would just add to that, I think very top of the list would be JavaScript libraries, would be the next on the list. The Java and Go libraries already have, I think, good community support. So they're valuable, but they're covered as of now anyway. So JavaScript is the one that needs a little bit more help perhaps next.
And like, I don't know if anyone else is tracking, but I would imagine in JavaScript, we have a lot of disparate and like either under-maintained or kind of like rogue libraries that people kind of pop up. Is that the case or not?
We do have a kind of an unmaintained library right now that was written by a Google Summer Code student. And then we do, I think what people have been doing with JavaScript is just kind of writing their own and not necessarily publishing them as libraries. There are some subsets of SPDX out there that are quite popular, like license expression parsers that solve very small segments of the SPDX spec. But I'm not aware of any libraries other than the unmaintained one that's, and I can post a link to that as well. But there's not much activity on it right now.
And just for everyone's information, I didn't make this clear at the beginning. This is specifically for SPDX libraries. In the context of this, the intent of this group is not to focus solely on SPDX, but at this moment, we are aware of need for SPDX libraries specifically. There's no reason we couldn't put similar funding proposals through for something with CycloneDX related, for example. All right, so Gary, did you have something? I just saw your little thing light up.
I was probably just me muting and unmuting. I'll post that link to the JavaScript libraries in just a second.
Yes, thank you. And okay, so here's kind of what we wanted to do next is we found out recently that the OpenSSF TAC has some funding available to it for discretionary projects. And so I've added the particular ask for the Python library, specifically just the Python library. Kate has the proposal. And I want it to go to the next TAC meeting and ask them to pay for this. And that's kind of where we sit at.
Hang on.
What, Eva?
As far as I'm aware, the TAC does not actually have that yet. We're really getting the cart in front of the horse here. Hold up. Hi, Brian. I see you turn on camera.
Comment.
I'll add, technically, it's not in the TAC's position to entirely approve full stop, but it is, there is a budget allocation. The TAC can recommend proposals to that. Right now, that's something that we as staff and the TAC could agree to move forward with within the current bounds. There are conversations about future approaches to funding that, but there is an existing allocation. I don't mean to refute you. There are some better ways that we'll do this in a more systematic way, but today, I think there'd be a relatively fast path if the TAC believed in it to be able to get these things funded. So I think focusing on a well-justified, lean proposal for work to do would be incredibly useful here.
Is that answer suitable, Ava?
I continue to not have any clear framework from the governing board on what the TAC should or shouldn't be approving, what exactly our budget is. I've heard a variety of numbers and proposals for possible ways forward. I'm waiting for the governing board to be more clear.
David, maybe we should follow up offline of this.
Happy to. Yeah, I'm concerned about putting a funding proposal in front of the TAC right now, leading to further confusion in the TAC. So I agree with the direction and intent. Let's just give it another week or so before we do that.
Great. And for those who don't know, Ava is a TAC member, so it's an important consideration to
yeah, and not saying we stop this. Just please don't put it on the agenda for next TAC meeting. We have a few more things to resolve before I think we could entertain and vote on a proposal like this. Again, I think it's a good one. Just give us a little more time to sort things out.
All right, we'll figure out what that means. That was in the TAC channel, Ava, on Slack. And it came up like last week, I think. But whatever, we'll figure it out. I'm not that worried about it. All right, so let's move on then. So the next item I have is just next steps. And this is where Kate has started to kind of construct the membership of this group. And I don't think we have an official like membership list yet, but it's one of the things we want to do. And this is meant to be a SIG in the OpenSSF, which is not super clearly defined. I mean, it's being worked on. Ava's been doing a ton of work around the governance model and defining all of this. But fundamentally, this group has the, I don't have a good answer for where we go next. And I think that's up to the people willing to do the work. The only thing I do know is I want to define this as kind of a, for anyone who's ever been in the agile world, there's like a pig and chicken model where there's kind of, if you think of breakfast, you know, the chicken is involved, but the pig is committed. And I think one of the things that has held up some progress and in other working groups and SIGs I've seen is what I'll call chicken bombing, where people come in with grand ideas or suggestions and then they disappear and then nothing gets done. And so I'd like to make sure that the people like working on the SIG are working on the SIG. And it's not one of those instances where we have all these lofty ideas, but no one to do the work. And I would like to make sure that the people here are doing the work, if that makes sense.
So oh, whoops, raise hands.
Oh. Thanks, David. Vicky.
Hey, so yay, +1 to not chicken bombing. Great phrase there. But I also would like to make sure that we've just kind of got a scope around this in general and have a plan. And it kind of feels like we're diving into this and only a select few have some sort of context for what has happened before, what's going forward, rather than having this be a collective effort. So could we just sort of, step back and set that scope and make sure everyone is on board with it and we know what exactly we're doing, what we're looking to deliver, all that sort of stuff. For instance, this Python stuff, this is the first I've heard of it, and I participate not only here, but also in SPDX. And so this all kind of came out of left field. And so I would love it if we could just sort of come up with some sort of at least rough plan that we can then follow through on, and then use that as sort of a chicken bombing barrier, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's completely reasonable. The Python talk came out of a meeting in Austin during the open source summit we had. And so it's, yeah, I'll take the blame for that. We should have documented it somewhere more clearly. I mean, this is also just part of growing pains, I think, for a group like this. We don't have all the answers. I'll put a link to a document. It's linked from somewhere else. We have a lot of documents. This has kind of, look towards the bottom, it says our proposed approach, and that came out of Brian's write-up after the White House meeting. And so I think that's kind of where we want to start. And then it's just a matter of putting some structure around all this. But I think your complaint is completely valid, and thank you. David, do you have something to add?
Yeah, completely. Well, a very, very specific ask, I guess, which is number of people starting to ask me, hey, I hear about this SBOM thing, and I've been telling people it's really best that be generated during build, during development. Great, okay, where's my open source software SBOM generator that I can stick in? And I don't know that I have a good list of those. I mean, I know that Anchor has one. I know Microsoft has one. I would love to have at least a list of the open source software SBOM generators with links to them. Maybe that I know SPDX has a tools list, but I know it's nowhere near complete. I'm sure there are other lists. A next step after that might be evaluating, but step one would be just identifying them.
Right. This is something where I think I want Alan to sort of speak on, in the sense that we were talking about doing this underneath his working group, but that really hasn't started yet. And I don't know if we want to be having duplicate efforts simultaneously in many places or not, is what I'm concerned. I'd like to deconflict this early. Let's put it that way.
Excellent. So I can give you, and forgive us, it took just a little while to get things going. We had 2 listening sessions on focus on the tooling side. I can share some preliminary thoughts. We're trying to sort of get some summaries put out. Some low-hanging fruits include, hey, let's have collections of SBOMs to support tooling. Let's work on supporting the tooling marketplace. Let's set up plug fests. And then the longer term is going to be identifying what are some known obstacles to interoperability and tackling those head on. And then the last piece that also might be an early low-hanging fruit is to sort of say, hey, let's come up with a couple of definitions that can then be adopted by both SBOM specs that define the difference between build and source and post-build binary analysis and things like that, and have that set potentially be extensible, so that as we move into SaaS bombs and APIs and things like that, we can have some more information. Is that so that's a pretty broad agenda. It'll take us a while to get through all of those. So there are a couple of things. One, you can say, hey, based on that agenda, we will take that and we'll move quickly on it. And another approach is to say, hey, this is a good, you guys move forward based on the broader landscape, because we have, tool providers and commercial stuff, blah, blah, blah. I'm quite open to whatever you think is best.
Know that in one of the documents, security use cases, we do break out types of SBOMs, but to your kind of the broader point here, they are not defined really. And I think even just some very superficial attempts to put some parameters around some of those types illuminated the fact that they need to be fully defined and put into their own sort of like railway.
I'm willing to take the action item to move forward on this, to put a straw man 1-pager doc together, which with the definitions of the types of SBOMs that I think are being used right now. And if people want to go in and comment, we can at least start this off, and then maybe that can feed into the efforts that Alan's doing down the road as things are move forward. But at least that way we have a reasonable reference starting point for the taxonomy. And we can start to collect the tools we know about in that space.
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna put a link in the chat also. So this is a bug that I forget who even started the discussion, but basically Apache, the Apache Software Foundation wants to generate SBOMs for their stuff, but they are looking for guidance, and they specifically Mark Cox, who's down at the bottom, he and I go way back. He reached out and said, "Hey, can the OpenSSF provide guidance for like what are the expectations? What should we do?" And so I think, Kate, if we can frame that kind of in that context, it would be invaluable. I think, especially like from the perspective of like this is what an open source project should do, and then I think we can tie that to David's ask of a list. We could even provide like, here is how you can accomplish this with these tools, and then give some good examples, because I think it's one thing to list some of these tools, it's another thing to run them, because sometimes they're not super easy to run.
Well, as part of the NTA thing, one of the things we were doing was saying, here's how to go about invoking them. And, pointers to the sites and things like that. And so if we want to use that, yeah, there's 3 Google Docs that are there that basically are catching all of this in a standard format for the last couple of years. Yep. Now, no one's gone back and done an update, but I'm gonna go pull the links up and I'll paste them here.
Thank you.
Jumping back into the conversation on the question of taxonomies and common terminology, I actually started a project to try and do that, I guess 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. It's on my repo, GitHub repo called Supply Chain Synthesis. It's a bunch of work there on common taxonomies, links to other projects. If that is a useful starting point for this group, I'm also happy to move that repo into the OpenSSF, into the SIG, if folks are interested in it.
Can you link to it for us, Ava, so we can look at it? That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was my first official foray into open source supply chain work, was to build a taxonomy.
Yeah. Like say,
there's a couple pictures in there that also might be useful. Where I tried to map out what are the functional roles necessary in this domain, and how can we create a sort of a common taxonomy for the relationships between different types of tools and standards. I boiled it down to 5 different sort of categories or lexical groupings of things: specification formats, objects and their artifact formats, tools and processes for manipulating artifacts, metadata storage and distribution mechanism, and identity systems. We need, like any system, needs all 5 of those to be fulfilled in some way. And there is multiple ways to fulfill each of those requirements. Some systems need more than one instance. For example, tool and process probably need a lot of tools, some to generate claims, some to validate claims, some to enforce policy. So once again, I'm happy if this is useful to folks, great. If it's just educational, that's fine. If it's something that we want to take as a starting point and move it into the OpenSSF, I'm happy to do that too.
So Ava, as you described it, it sounds like something that I should read, digest, and will probably need you to handhold me to understand some of it. As you describe it, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're not sailing directly into is a proposal to solve everything with a capital E. And so how can we use the framework that you've laid out to say, let's focus on this problem, and then make sure that we've sort of left room to interface with the other stuff that's coming?
Yes, absolutely. That was avoiding that was part of my goal when I started work on this. But by sort of building a map, I thought I'd be able to navigate the complex space of everyone's different terminology a little bit more easily. And it's helped me. I'd be happy to give folks a walkthrough of it, not today, I haven't prepared for that, but maybe next meeting, or set up some time outside the series to do that.
This Google Doc here, is this your work here? Tooling ecosystem working with SPDX?
No, that's the one I just pasted in there.
Okay, that's from you. That's from you.
Yeah,
right?
I'm basically putting the Cyclone, SPDX, and so forth in. if you look in there, there's a classification system for the types of tools. It needs to be extended to some more of the sort of types of SBOMs that are out there, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm asking what I'm hoping is a simple question. Whose document is this? I
It was,
see it.
it was crowdsourced as part of the NTIA efforts.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Crowdsourced.
Kate, that
Crowdsourced.
tooling ecosystem with SPDX, that's a fantastic document. Is that in a more durable format like Markdown that I can link to from my repo?
No, but happy to, like I say, the part I'd like to, like I say, this is part of the agreeing how we actually commonly specify the tools. Let me just go and look at one of them right now with the SWID. Is as part of the NTIA efforts, we did a tool classification taxonomy that's missing a type, I think, in my mind. But then we had a standard template that was filled in that could then be parsable. And so the idea was eventually to take it up to GitHub and have something that was a landscape type of deal so people could start to search on things and find things. And if people are comfortable with this, I propose this as a starting point for classifying, and then we add in, after we get the definitions of the SBOM service standardized, any sort of further tooling change we want to see in terms of types. But, you know, there was a lot of discussion that happened in that community to come down with, you know, produce after creation, you know, produce, consume, and transform as the different types that were being used. And then there's, like I say, there's one here for Cyclone. And so
These are,
we've got,
as I skimmed these look like
now.
a better starting point than my docs.
Mhm.
I do find it amusing that I just did a quick search and Microsoft's SBOM tool isn't listed in either one.
No, it's not. They're stale.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
and
so
Microsoft's SBOM tool was just a very recent release. I haven't updated mine in months.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So, but I think that's my point. This is absolutely not an attempt to beat on either of you. It's we need to find a way to get these, up to date and maintained, so because I think a lot of people will find these.
So if people are
kinds of
comfortable with
documents
this basic type of structure here, which is, you know, we might want to make it more general to have not specific format, but basically let people say the formats and then the actions effectively. So because there's a lot of tools that are in Cyclone DX and SPDX, for instance. You want to probably be able to look at both of them from that context. And then, you know, here's the installation instructions. But if people are coming with the functionality, a location, and installation, and how to use, we can leverage what's there, cross-check it with what is there today, and is it still accurate? And then as people have gaps, if we do this into like a GitHub repo where we're effectively creating a page for each or something like that, then we can start to do more processing within our websites and make it much more interesting and useful to people.
Yeah, I love this idea. I think moving it out of both, you know, out of Google Doc, out of my repo into a standard location in this working group, fantastic. That'll help solve the problem you brought up, David. Like, it's stale because it's fragmented right now in different Google Docs. Put it in one place, we can bring attention to it. I'd also propose we put this in a machine readable format like Markdown or YAML, so that it can be turned into different sorts of web pages, different resources can read it.
And as you go about doing that, you may want to think about what are some of the things in the description of these tools that need to be a little more formalized or better defined. Because again, I think one of our goals, or at least one of Kate's a goal that Kate identified earlier that resonate with a lot of people, is to sort of say, hey, this type of tool does X. By doing X, we mean you can do this. And maybe even here's the sample input and the output to get on that list, because we do know that a lot of these tools are not cross-compatible, which is a shame.
Yeah, Alexius has been really patient with his hand up now.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So yeah, since we're exchanging links, I can also put the work that we have done since 4 years in the Open Chain tooling group. And we also have capability maps of all tools and big picture of everything that's tooling landscapes and that stuff. Yeah, just another one of these.
Can you post the link? So let's get it into these notes.
Yeah, okay,
You did.
I'll put it on.
If you can put it in their notes, that's great. If you put it in the chat,
Yeah.
then hopefully someone will copy it into the notes for the chat.
No, I did both. Don't
Oh,
worry.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's excellent. The cooling landscape.
Mhm.
Okay. A slightly different scope, but that's okay. I mean, identifying what is out there is clearly step one. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, as you can imagine, until I don't know, a year ago, we were more focused on compliance and licensing information for response. And yeah, security now has taken lead.
Awesome. It always amuses me how this stuff kind of comes out of the woodwork once people start working together. All right, so this is a lot to chew on, I think, in one day. And so I want to go back through some of the to-dos and make sure they're all owned. We've got Vicky asking about clear goals. So I want to give a to-do off that. We need to kind of clean up this document we have that defines what's it called? It's called the SBOM use cases for security. It has a smattering of kind of goals and ideas, and I think we should tighten those up quite a bit. I'm happy to do that unless someone else wants to. All right, I'm going to take that then. And I'm going to do all my work in that document for now. I think we need it all in GitHub eventually because Google Docs are terrible places to store information, but we'll get there. What else is in here?
Well, we do need a repo, I guess, for the
Yep.
tools eventually.
We're going to need a repo.
So maybe we start getting that there, and then let's see. We need some people to sort of agree on the structuring of it. So that we can do the types of searches and queries. Do we want to just use a landscape type of format? Because there's some standard landscapes. There's like if we look at things, some of the other projects like the CNCF and so forth, they have these landscapes. Then it has various filtering and search capabilities.
I don't know what that means.
The CNCF landscape is an interactive web portal for browsing through projects and companies in the CNCF ecosystem. So there's a defined format on the back end, sort of how it's sort of in GitHub. Yeah, so landscape.cncf.io is the web portal to access it. I don't remember offhand the link to make a request update. I'm not sure if that's public.
It's up on GitHub, I believe, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the question there really is, do we intend this work to result in an interactive and browsable page like that landscape that's just linked in chat? Or do we want it just to be machine readable and in Git?
I mean, let's start with Git, but I think long term, we're going to need this consumable by humans.
The only thing, like I say, the thing I'm just wondering is if we can just start putting the information machine readable in a format that makes it easier to import into landscapes going down the road, we don't have to do the work twice.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay, so if we can just take, I think it's a YAML template.
I think it's
like
YAML. Yeah, I agree. Let's start with something close to that. I don't want us to bike shed on trying to fit this information into exactly the format that CNCF landscape uses, but something that we can move that direction. I like that.
I'm willing to work with someone on that and to integrate with what we've got from the NTIA stuff to date and some of the other sort of gaps to come up with a basic template. Is there anyone else that wants to work on the template with me?
If I can carve out some time, and for you, Kate, I will always make time.
Thank you, Vicky. You're very kind.
Only because you earned it.
Okay, then let's see if we can make that template actually start to play together and put the
And-
template. Now, so I think maybe the goal then is to bring back the template we're proposing to this group to make sure everyone's roughly comfortable with it. And then we will start to populate it, and then we can look at tooling on top of it later.
Yeah, and this is David Wheeler. Happy to give a hand as well. Just FYI, the landscaping stuff was actually originally developed by Dan Kahn. So, you know, in my experience, the key thing I think is to figure out what's the main layers and information you care about, because there's a million ways you can divide it up, but what matters.
Well, then it sounds like Vicky has to drop, or not. Oh, no, sorry, it was Alan that dropped. Sorry, my bad. Chat too fast. Yep. So I'll call a meeting then with Vicky and David, and anyone else want to be part of that discussion?
Yeah, this is Bunny. I'd like to be a part of that discussion.
Okay, buddy, sure. And we can put a straw man together and work it between now and the next meeting, and then bring it back. Oh, Georg wants to help as well. Yeah, George, can you basically make sure I have your email ID then?
Yeah. Yes, I can. I'll
Okay,
let
great.
you know.
I don't think you and I have interacted one-to-one at this point in time.
No, not yet.
All good then.
Good time to start, though.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do think that one complication for the landscape is I think that several tools probably cover multiple different kinds of capabilities. So it may be a little more complicated. Not sure how to deal with that, but that's something we can discuss later.
Yeah, I think we just want to discuss which capabilities we want to be able to systematize and standardize on, and then just have the YAML format described such that people can then build things on top of it later, filtering and so forth. Thanks.
Okay. And then the only other, well, I guess the other to-dos will say, Ava, if you're willing to present on your Git repo in the next meeting, that would be lovely. I can't hear you. You're muted.
That would be next week or week after?
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now. Let me double check my calendar. Uh, 16th. Chances are good, but I might be just recovering from DEF CON. We'll see. So
that's true. Do you want to be penciled in or not?
Pencil me in, and actually the 30th would be, the 30th is a shoe-in, so that'd be easier for me to just go out a month.
I'm not going to DEF CON, so if you guys want me to put that first stab of the template together, I can try to get that going. I can try for it with the others if we can all meet.
Yeah, and who put the open chain link in the chat?
Alexios did.
That was me.
Would you be willing to give a brief overview of that in the next meeting by chance?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Let's add that as well.
Who volunteered to discuss that landscape meeting? That was Kate Stewart, myself, and was that Vicky?
Vicky and then George and Buddy. So
they're listed in the notes. I've been writing them down.
Oh! I was trying to. I must have missed that. I'm injured. Oh, there they are. Okay. Well, twice is better than 0 times.
That's right. And the only other to-do we have listed here then is Kate writing a 1-pager.
Right. Do we want someone to go and create the Git repo so we're not blocked on that when we're finally ready to use it?
I would love that.
Okay.
I think, Josh, you'll have to ask the OpenSSF ops team to get that spun up for you.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll give that to me. I'll do that right after this meeting ends. That hopefully won't take more than a day or two.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, I am very happy with this list. This is a lot of work to
Okay.
do, but.
What
this is
about the
great.
use cases, though? We've got a few minutes left. Can we start talking about making some progress on that?
The use cases in the SBOM use cases for security document?
Yep.
Yeah, why don't you lead this one, Kate, since you're way more familiar with this than I am.
Well, I think there was a variety of use cases that people think are important for the tools to adhere to. Some of this stuff will obviously impact what sorts of tools we want to see, where we want to see gaps and so forth. This came out of the discussions in DC. And one of the things that people seem to both mostly all agree on in the room is starting to have the discussions about what are the use cases we all agree on that are relevant for security here and getting them documented as a place such that we can assess whether the tools against them are doing it or not and are able to satisfy the work, these use cases.
Okay.
So
I just created a little subset of what are the use cases. Did someone else do the same?
well,
Okay.
I
Do you-
don't know. Go for it. Go for it, David. You can take point here.
Okay, do you want, all right, so if I want to brainstorm on use cases, I think one of the most obvious one is,
Hey,
build time.
David, I want to
Yeah.
interrupt you for just a moment. There's a whole document that contains a bunch of this stuff. I don't know if you're looking.
Oh, where?
It's
No, I'm not
I
looking.
put it in the chat. Look at the chat.
Okay, sorry, I'm looking at the notes doc.
Yeah, I know we have too many documents. This is
That's okay. Okay. SBOM use cases for security.
Mhm.
Alrighty. Seems like a good thing to have. All right, it's down the notes.
And I know that the Cyclone DX community has some that they've documented. There's various pieces of evidence in other places too. So maybe starting to pull that all together and document the perspective of, this is what I would like to do with the various personas. Would be a useful thing to have at hand and us to consolidate. Like I know on the SPDX side, we've worked through a variety of them over time too. Some of which were documented on wikis and so forth, but having a set from the security perspective of exactly which use cases we want to be able to handle, I think will give us a common ground and framework to talk about things from.
I'd be willing to help with that. Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy. And I think Cameron and Bunny are also already started helping us with that one too.
Yep.
Thanks. Oh, and it looks like we've got in the chat, Randall is willing to help with that as well. Is there someone willing to take point on coordinating, getting more of these discussions down?
For the use cases?
Yep.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Nobody else wants it.
Cool. And then I guess, David, are you willing to go into that document and put in the pieces that you're aware of? So
For the SBOM use cases?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah,
because there's several I know that I'm surprised aren't there, but we can fix it.
Yeah, I suspect there's a few I'll want to add to over time, but I'm focusing on the other one right now, and then as soon as you guys get the first pass going, I'll take a pass there too. After that, as well, I think this group as well. So maybe in three meetings time, maybe we can sort of go through the use cases as a group, or something like that. Okay, Josh, hopefully you're taking notes as we're talking this one through and lining up volunteers on that one. I see a lot of stuff going on. I just stopped looking at the notes to talk.
I think David's been writing. I have not been.
Okay.
I have been taking notes, trying to take some notes.
Okay, great.
I will not complain. I will not claim completion of all possible information.
Okay.
But an attempt was made.
I'm just out of curiosity, would this be the appropriate place to introduce, like, I mean, because the way that I had started approaching this particular document was just thinking about use cases independent of any pre-existing use cases. So while pre-existing use cases are established, would this be the appropriate document to propose new ones? Cool.
Awesome. Is there anything else we need to cover there? I feel like this is in a good spot too. Epic. I have nothing else. Does anyone have anything else?
I think we're good. Let's just go let people start working then.
Yeah, I love this. We got a ton of work to do. This is fantastic. Thank you, everyone. This meeting has exceeded all of my expectations, which makes me very happy. All right. See you all in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.